The busy port of General Santos City was alive even when the sun went down. Lights from ships and buildings glowed brightly against the dark sky. Cranes moved heavy boxes and trucks rumbled by, making a constant hum of activity. All around the docks, fishing boats gently bobbed in the dark water. They were tied to the piers, waiting for the morning to go out again. The water was calm, reflecting the many lights like scattered stars. As Dean stepped onto the docks, the air hit him. It smelled strongly of salt from the ocean and fresh fish caught that day. It was the usual smell of any fishing port, familiar and strong. But beneath the normal smells and sounds, Dean sensed something else. A strange, heavy feeling hung in the air. It was a feeling of quiet fear, like a dark cloud over the lively port. The reason for the fear was clear. People had started to go missing from the port recently. Not just sailors, but workers, and even a few visitors. They simply vanished. It wasn't just one or two people, which would be bad enough. Many had disappeared, one after another. The number kept growing, making everyone who worked or lived near the port feel very uneasy. The worst part was, they vanished without any trace. No signs of a struggle, no belongings left behind. It was as if they simply melted into the night air near the docks. This is why Dean DeLeon had come. He walked alone, a single figure against the busy port. He carried himself with a quiet strength, clearly here for a serious reason. He wore simple, dark clothes that helped him blend into the shadows. His jacket was practical, not fancy, and his pants were tough, ready for any kind of action he might face in the night. Dean's face was serious, showing no emotion. His eyes, though, were sharp and watchful. They moved quickly, taking in everything around him, missing nothing in the busy port. Dean was a hunter, part of a secret group called the Witching Hour. But he worked alone most of the time now. He didn't always follow the rules of the group, preferring his own way. Even though he was a bit of a rebel, the Witching Hour still sent him missions. They knew he was good at what he did, especially when it came to hunting dangerous creatures no one else could handle. People called him Rogue because he chose to follow his own rules. He didn't wait for orders. He acted on his own instincts, especially when it came to dealing with evil creatures. He began to scan the bustling port carefully. His eyes darted from the stacks of crates to the shadowy corners of the warehouses. He was looking for any small detail, any clue that could tell him what was happening here. The sounds of the port were normal, the clang of metal, the shouts of workers, the distant horns of ships. But to Dean, who saw more than most, something felt deeply wrong. The normal sounds couldn't hide the feeling of danger. As he moved closer to a group of tired-looking fishermen, he heard their hushed whispers. They spoke in low voices about the missing people, their faces drawn with worry and fear. He listened as some of the fishermen talked about strange, glowing lights they had seen far out in the water at night. They didn't look like normal boat lights, and they moved in odd ways. Others nervously mentioned eerie, beautiful songs that seemed to come from deep within the ocean. They said the songs were so lovely they made you want to just walk right into the water. Dean knew these were not just old tales. He walked away from the crowded areas, heading towards a quiet, older part of the docks where fewer people went. This was where the danger often hid. The wooden planks beneath his heavy boots creaked loudly with each step. The sounds echoed in the quiet, empty space, making him feel even more alone in the darkness. As Dean reached the quieter part of the docks, he noticed something strange on the wet ground. There was a slimy trail, thick and glistening under the dim lights. It snaked across the wooden planks, leaving a clear mark. This trail was not like anything a normal fish would leave. It was too wide, too thick, and it seemed to move with a purpose. It was much bigger, more unnatural than any slime left by sea creatures Dean knew. Dean followed the strange, slimy path with his eyes. It led straight to the very edge of the pier, right where the wooden planks ended and the dark water began. It was clear whatever left the trail had gone into the sea. He leaned over the edge, looking down. A faint, sweet smell rose from the dark water below. It was a pleasant smell, almost like sweet flowers or fruit, but Dean knew better than to trust it. It was a scent Dean knew very well, a scent he had learned to recognize from many past missions. His face became grim as he realized what it meant. This wasn't just any creature. It was a specific kind of danger. It was the smell of a Siokoy, a cunning sea monster from old stories. Siokoys were known for being tricky and dangerous, hiding their true forms to trick people who came too close to the water. Siokoys often looked just like regular humans, sometimes even beautiful ones, to trick people into coming closer. They would pretend to be a lost swimmer or someone needing help, just to lure their prey. But despite their human-like appearance, they were deadly. Their main goal was to charm and lure their victims into the deep, dark water, where they would drown them and feed. Dean quickly pulled out a small, old flashlight from his pocket. It was sturdy and worn, a tool he had used for countless hunts. He gripped it tightly, ready for what was coming. He shined the narrow beam over the dark, choppy water below the pier. The light danced on the surface, trying to cut through the murkiness, searching for any sign of movement beneath. No one was visible in the light's glow. The water looked empty, but Dean's special hunter senses told him otherwise. He knew the Siokoy was there, lurking, watching him. Then the water began to swirl strangely, even without a strong wind. It moved in slow, deliberate patterns, as if something large was shifting just beneath the surface, preparing to attack. From the depths, he heard it. A faint, melodic hum. It was soft at first, but it slowly grew stronger, pulling at his mind. It was a beautiful sound, almost too beautiful for something so dangerous. This was the Siokoy song, a magical tune meant to charm and hypnotize anyone who heard it. It was designed to make people forget their fears and walk right into the water, right into the monster's trap. But Dean was a hunter, trained to resist such magic. He ignored the strong, pulling sensation of the song. His mind remained clear, focused on the danger, not the beauty. He knew the song's true purpose was not to invite, but to kill. He understood that the Siokoy simply wanted to drown its prey, adding another body to the list of missing people at the port. Suddenly, a loud splash broke the quiet night. It was not a small ripple, but a forceful, angry burst of water. The Siokoy had finally made its move, breaking the tense silence of the docks. Just beneath the surface, Dean saw a large, shadowy shape move. It was quick, like a dark torpedo in the water, heading straight for him. The creature was much bigger than he had thought. Dean immediately got ready for battle. His hand moved without thinking, going quickly to his wrist. He was preparing to use his special weapon, knowing he had only moments before the Siokoy attacked. He wore a special bracelet there, a unique Agimat passed down in his family. It looked like a simple piece of jewelry, but it held immense power, ready to be unleashed at his command. The bracelet Dean wore was called Boon Tot Pagi. It wasn't just a pretty piece of jewelry, it was a unique magical item, an Agimat that had been with his family for a very long time. It held a powerful magic, ready to be used. As Dean's hand closed around the bracelet, he felt the cool metal press against his skin. It was a familiar feeling, a comfort that told him his power was within reach. The metal seemed to buzz faintly with stored energy. Suddenly, with a violent splash, the Siokoy burst from the water. Its upper body, looking like a strong man, was partly visible, glistening wetly in the dim port lights. It was bigger and more terrifying than Dean expected. It looked like a man, but its skin was covered in ugly green-brown fish scales, and its fingers ended in sharp, black claws. When it opened its mouth, Dean could see rows of jagged, pointed teeth. Its eyes, however, were the most chilling. They glowed with an eerie, sickly green light in the dimness, like two evil coals watching Dean. They held no warmth, only hunger and malice. The creature moved with a strange, twisting grace, its body swaying like a snake. It seemed perfectly at home in the water, even when partly out of it, showing how dangerous and powerful it was. Dean knew exactly what the Siokoy's next move would be. It would try to use its strength to pull him into the dark, deep water. That was how these monsters always worked, dragging their victims down. He wouldn't let that happen. Dean knew he had to fight this creature on his own terms, on the solid ground of the pier. He needed to keep it out of the water, where it was strongest. With a sudden, violent lunge, the Siokoy shot forward from the water, surprisingly fast. It was like a blur, its claws outstretched, aiming for Dean's chest. Dean reacted instantly, his hunter training kicking in. He dodged quickly, stepping back from the pier's edge just as the Siokoy's claws slashed through the air where he had just been standing. As he moved, Dean focused his mind, drawing on his own inner strength. He felt a warm, tingly energy begin to flow through his body, from his heart to his fingertips. It was his magic, awakening. On his arms, the tattoos began to glow. A faint blue light shone from the intricate patterns etched into his skin, growing brighter with his focus. They pulsed like tiny living stars. These glowing marks were his own Agimat, deeply etched into his skin. Unlike the usual magical items passed down, Dean had created these from his own magic and blood. They were truly a part of him. They were not traditional Agimat, which were usually objects. But Dean had found a way to make them work for him. making them his own unique source of power, powerful and reliable in battle. As the blue light pulsed, a shadowy, wolf-like creature began to form from the tattoos on Dean's left arm. It was dark and misty, but its shape was clear, taking on a solid form beside him. This was a familiar, a magical companion born directly from Dean's own magic. It was not a real wolf, but a spirit creature, loyal only to him, ready to fight by his side. The shadow wolf let out a low, guttural snarl, its misty teeth bared at the Siokoy. It was ready to attack, its shadowy form vibrating with a silent energy, eager to defend its master. The Siokoy hissed, its glowing eyes widening in surprise. It clearly had not expected Dean to have a companion, especially one made of pure magic. This was an unexpected and annoying problem for the monster. It was not expecting a hunter with such strange and powerful abilities. Most hunters relied on old, traditional Agimat, but Dean's unique tattoos and familiar were something entirely new to it. While the Siokoy was surprised, Dean wasted no time. He activated his buntot pagi, gripping the bracelet tightly and channeling his magic into it, ready to unleash its true form. The buntot pagi, held in Dean's hand, began to change right before the Siokoy's eyes. It stretched and twisted, turning from a simple bracelet into a long, thin whip. It looked like a powerful living tail, ready to strike. The newly formed whip wasn't just ordinary leather. It crackled with a faint blue magical energy humming with power. Small sparks jumped along its length, showing its hidden strength. Dean snapped the whip through the air. It moved with incredible speed, cutting through the night. The crack was loud, like thunder, and sent bright sparks flying in all directions, dazzling the monster. The Siokoy hissed loudly, its surprise turning into anger. It dove back into the dark water, disappearing beneath the surface. It was trying to escape Dean's attack and use its home ground. Dean knew the monster's plan. It would use the water, its natural hiding place, to its advantage. Down there, it was faster and stronger, and it could hide easily in the murk. He knew he had to follow, even if it was dangerous. If he let the Siokoy get away, it would just keep hunting people. There was no other choice. He had to finish the fight now. Taking a deep, quick breath, Dean jumped. He launched himself off the pier, plunging headfirst into the cold, murky depths of the port's water. The air rushed out of his lungs. The cold water immediately enveloped him. It felt like an icy blanket wrapping around his body. The sudden chill bit at his skin, and the world became a blurry, green-black place. Visibility was very poor. The water was thick with mud and tiny bits of trash from the port. It was hard to see anything, making it tough to find the Siokoy in the darkness. Even though he couldn't see it well, Dean could feel the Siokoy. It was moving quickly all around him, a powerful dark shape in the water. He sensed its speed and its cunning movements. The Siokoy was trying to confuse him, using the dark water to its advantage. It would dart close, then pull away, hoping to make Dean lose his sense of direction and get lost. His shadow wolf familiar, still glowing faintly from his arm, swam expertly beside him. It moved through the water as if it were air, keeping pace with Dean despite the darkness. The shadow wolf seemed to see everything, even in the deepest darkness of the murky water. Its glowing eyes pierced through the gloom, tracking the hidden Siokoy with ease. Suddenly, Dean felt a sharp, painful tug on his leg. The Siokoy had found him, its strong grip clamping down. It was trying to drag him deeper, where he would be helpless. The Siokoy was trying to pull him down, deeper into the darkness. It wanted to trap him in the crushing depths, making it impossible for Dean to breathe or fight back. With a powerful kick, Dean broke free from the creature's grip. He pushed off the Siokoy, sending it reeling back a little. He wouldn't let it get the upper hand. His lungs began to burn fiercely for air. He'd been underwater for too long. He knew he was running out of time, and he had to finish this fight before he drowned. He needed to end this fight fast before he lost consciousness. Every second counted. He had to strike now, while he still had enough strength and breath. Gathering all his remaining strength, Dean swung the buntot pagi through the water. It glowed brightly, a whip of pure energy, making a wide arc in the murky depths. The whip created strong currents, churning the water powerfully. It hit the Siokoy with a forceful impact, surprising the creature and pushing it back, disrupting its movements. The whip hit the Siokoy hard. The creature let out a terrible gurgling shriek, a watery cry of pain and anger. It was a sound that would haunt Dean for a long time. Even though it was hurt, the Siokoy was still very dangerous. It thrashed around, its glowing eyes still full of fury. It wasn't ready to give up, even with a big wound. While the Siokoy was hurting, Dean's shadow wolf familiar attacked. It bit fiercely at the monster's slimy tail, holding on tightly. The wolf worked with Dean, not letting the Siokoy rest. The Siokoy thrashed wildly, trying to shake off the shadow wolf. Its powerful tail beat against the water, stirring up even more mud and making the dark water almost impossible to see through. In that moment of chaos, Dean saw his chance. The Siokoy was distracted and weakened. This was the opening he needed, the perfect moment to finish the fight. He quickly reeled in the buntot pagi whip slightly. He pulled it closer to his body, getting it ready for its next form. The glowing whip shortened, preparing for a change. Then Dean focused all his remaining magic into the whip. He used his will and the special power of the buntot pagi to make it transform into something new. It was a secret trick he had learned. The glowing whip twisted and squeezed, becoming hard and solid. In just a second, it changed into a short, sharp dagger, still humming with blue light. It was perfect for a close-up attack. Holding the new dagger tightly, Dean swam towards the Siokoy with powerful, quick strokes. He pushed through the muddy water, aiming directly for the monster's chest. He knew this had to be the final blow. The Siokoy, feeling weaker and seeing Dean's attack, made a desperate try to escape. It tried to swim away, twisting and turning, but it was too slow now. Dean reached the Siokoy. With all his might, he plunged the glowing dagger deep into its chest. The impact sent a jolt through his arm, but he held firm. From the wound, a dark, oily blood bloomed into the water. It spread like an inky cloud, mixing with the mud, making the water even darker and more unsettling. The Siokoy convulsed one last time, its body shaking violently. Then, all its strength left it. Its movement stopped, and it went completely limp in the water, defeated. Its large body slowly began to float for a moment, then it started to sink. The Siokoy's lifeless form drifted down, disappearing into the dark, hidden depths of the port. As the monster sank, a huge wave of exhaustion washed over Dean. His muscles ached, and his mind felt heavy. The fight had taken everything out of him. He had used a lot of his special energy and magic to fight the Siokoy. Using his unique tattoos and transforming the buntot pagi took a heavy toll on his body. His magical tattoos, which had glowed so brightly, dimmed slightly. The blue light faded, becoming faint lines on his arms, a sign that his power was running low. With great effort, Dean pushed himself back up towards the surface. His arms and legs felt heavy, but he knew he had to get out of the water. He finally broke the surface, gasping loudly for air. The cold night air filled his lungs, and he pulled himself onto the wooden pier, dripping wet and completely worn out. He lay there for a moment, flat on the wet wooden planks. His chest heaved as he tried to catch his breath, the sounds of the port slowly returning to his ears. As the Siokoy sank, the shadow wolf familiar, which had been so real, began to flicker. It slowly faded, like smoke, dissolving back into the tattoos on Dean's arm. Its job was done. At the same time, the glowing dagger he held changed back. It shrank and softened, becoming the simple buntot pagi bracelet once more, resting on his wrist as if nothing had happened. Dean lay there, feeling the cold, hard wood of the pier against his cheek. It was rough and damp, a stark reminder of the harsh reality he lived in, so different from the magic he just wielded. For now, the mission was done. The Siokoy was gone, and the port was safe from that monster, at least for tonight. Dean allowed himself a brief moment of quiet relief. Slowly, very slowly, Dean pushed himself up. His body protested with every movement, heavy and sore, but he managed to sit up, then stand. He was still very tired. He looked out at the dark port. The lights still glittered, and the distant sounds of the city were there, but the immediate area around him was quiet again, peaceful after the fight. No one had seen the battle. The fight had happened quickly, in the darkest part of the docks, hidden from the eyes of everyday people. His secret remained safe. He was alone, as always. Being a rogue hunter meant no backup, no cheers. Just the silent satisfaction of a job done, and the endless road ahead. Dean reached into his pocket. His fingers found a small vial, smooth and cool against his skin. It was an important item, carefully kept for moments like these. It contained a special potion, a magical concoction meant to help him recover his strength. These potions were rare, made from special ingredients from the Garden of Eden. He uncorked the vial with a soft pop and quickly drank the bitter liquid. It tasted strange, like herbs and earth, but he knew it would work. A warm feeling spread through his tired muscles almost immediately. The exhaustion began to fade, replaced by a slow return of energy. It was like magic healing him from the inside. He knew he couldn't rest for long, despite how tired he was. The fight against the creatures and traitors was far from over. There was no time for true rest. Reports had been coming in showing that more and more magical creatures were crossing over from the Garden of Eden. The veil, the barrier between worlds, was weakening faster than ever. And it wasn't just creatures. More traitors from the Great Cleansing, the terrible event 15 years ago, were starting to appear. Dean had to find them all. He remembered the losses of that day, the pain and the fire. 15 years ago, so many hunters had died, so many families torn apart. The memory still hurt deeply. His family, the De Leon clan, had been almost wiped out during the Great Cleansing. He and his brother, Don, were some of the only ones left, a painful reminder of what they had lost. Dean was one of the very few survivors, a living ghost of a once great clan. This heavy burden pushed him forward, alone, in his dangerous work. This painful memory fueled his rage, giving him a strong resolve. It made him more determined than ever to hunt down every last traitor and monster responsible for the Great Cleansing. That anger led to his kill-on-sight rule for the traitors. He wouldn't capture them. He would destroy them. This rule was why the Witching Hour called him Rogue. That fierce kill-on-sight rule for the traitors was why the Witching Hour group called him Rogue. They didn't like how he acted alone, but they couldn't deny his strength. But even with his own rules, the Witching Hour still needed Dean. He was too skilled, too important to simply cast aside. They had to rely on his unique abilities. They needed his skills, especially to deal with the growing threat of monsters and traitors. Dean was a weapon they couldn't afford to lose, no matter how wild he was. Dean slowly pushed himself up from the pier, his body still heavy from the fight. He wobbled slightly, but his determination kept him on his feet. The potion was helping, but he wasn't fully recovered. He knew he couldn't stay on the pier for long. He needed to leave the area quickly, before anyone noticed anything strange or saw the signs of his battle. His goal was to clean up any tracks he left behind and make it look like nothing at all had happened. No one should ever know about the Siokoy, or about Dean's fight to stop it. Far away from Dean, hidden deep in the shadows of an old, abandoned warehouse, another person stood. They watched the pier, completely out of sight from anyone. It was a young man, standing perfectly still like a statue. He wore a quiet expression, and his presence was calm, almost invisible in the night. He wore dark glasses, even though it was late at night. They covered his eyes completely, making it impossible to tell where he was looking or what he was seeing. His eyes were blind. He couldn't see anything in the normal way, but he saw with other senses, deeper and sharper. He felt the world around him, feeling things others never could. He sensed the last flickers of magic from the fight, like tiny sparks dying out in the air. It was a familiar energy, strong and wild, belonging to only one person he knew. He heard the faint sounds of struggle, even though the fight was over. His ears caught the tiny echoes of splashing water and heavy breathing, sounds that others would miss. And most importantly, he felt the unique energy of his older brother, Dean. It was like a special hum that only he could recognize, telling him exactly where Dean was and what he had been doing. This was Don De Leon, Dean's younger brother. He was different from Dean, quieter, but just as powerful in his own way, always watching, always knowing. He had known Dean was here in General Santos City. His senses had told him Dean would be drawn to the missing people, like a moth to a dangerous flame. Don had followed him discreetly, making sure Dean never knew he was there. He moved like a shadow, unseen, unheard, always keeping a watchful distance. Their relationship was strained, broken for years by the Great Cleansing and Dean's choice to be Rogue. The pain of the past had put a deep crack between them. They rarely spoke directly to each other anymore. Words were hard, sometimes impossible, but their connection, though damaged, was still strong, a bond of blood and shared grief. But despite the silence, Don always watched over Dean. He protected his brother from afar, ready to step in if Dean ever truly needed help, or if danger became too great. Don knew Dean was reckless, often putting himself in harm's way. But he also knew Dean was incredibly powerful, strong enough to face monsters alone. Still, it didn't stop Don from worrying. Don, even though he couldn't see with his eyes, could sense the last bit of magic left behind by the Siokoy. It was like a faint, sticky feeling in the air, a sign the monster had been there. But Don felt another kind of magic too. It was stronger, more alive, and very different. It was Dean's power, The unique magic of his tattoos, which always felt a little wild and untamed. Most hunters used Agimat that were old special objects given by the Garden of Eden. But Dean's tattoos were not like that at all. They were part of him, made from his own energy and blood, which was unusual and a little risky. Don worried about Dean's methods. Dean was too eager to fight alone, too quick to use his own risky magic. Don knew this could get his brother into deep trouble one day, perhaps even with their own organization. Dean was strong, but that also made him a target. Don knew many groups wanted him gone. The various monsters, the traitors from the Great Cleansing, and even some powerful people within the Witching Hour itself. Especially the traitors from the Great Cleansing. They hated Dean and the De Leon clan for stopping their evil plan years ago. They would want to kill him more than anyone else, seeking revenge. And the Witching Hour, while they used Dean for his skills, might one day decide he was too wild, too hard to control. Then they would come for him, just like they did to other rogue hunters who didn't follow the rules. Don took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling slowly. His super sharp senses were working hard, taking in every tiny detail of the night. The subtle smells of the port, the distant sounds, and every ripple of magic in the air. He heard Dean's quiet footsteps moving away from the pier. Dean was leaving the scene, just like Don knew he would. The sounds faded, growing softer with distance as Dean disappeared into the night. Don knew his job was important. He would stay hidden in the shadows and make sure no one else came near the pier. No curious person, no unwanted monster. He would keep the area clear until morning, erasing any trace of the fight. His main job was to protect the veil, the invisible wall between the human world and the magical world. But just as important, his job was to protect Dean. He swore he would always be there for his brother, in his own silent way. Even though he was far away and didn't speak a word to Dean, Don was there. His silent watching was his way of showing he cared, his way of helping his brother in the dark and dangerous world they lived in. Don felt a cold certainty in his heart. He knew this small fight with the Siokoy was just the beginning of something much bigger. The troubles were growing, and more darkness was coming for them all. Deep in the magical world of the Garden of Eden, more dark creatures were stirring. They were waking up, feeling the veil weaken, and preparing to cross into the human world. It was a terrifying thought. The veil, which was meant to keep the human world safe and separate from magic, was getting weaker by the day. It was like an old, thin sheet, letting more and more magic and monsters slip through. Soon, it might break completely, opening the floodgates. And worse, Don felt a chilling, cold pull. It was the faint whisper of hell, a dark and evil place no one wanted to see. He knew it was getting closer, its terrible gates threatening to open into their world. But for tonight, the immediate danger was over. The cunning Siokoy was gone, defeated by Dean's strength. One monster was gone, a small victory in what promised to be a very long war. And Dean, his reckless, powerful brother, was safe. For now. Don knew the safety wouldn't last forever, but he would take these small moments of peace when they came, preparing for the bigger fight ahead.
Shadows creep where the old truths sleep. City lights blur what secrets stir. From lagging streets to the city's heart, a row hunter's feats playing a dangerous part. 15 years since the cleansing scar. Now the veil's thin, not far, not far. Monsters crawl beyond the wall. He's hunting them down, gonna make them fall. By day a Mundan, a mask he wears. By night a demon hunter, facing all the fears. No formal badge, no rules he'll obey. Just the beast to engage, come what may.